kind-hearted American recently asked me why I care so much about US policy, and the honest answer is that I don't have a choice. Nobody outside the United States gets to ignore what they do. The companies setting the pace of AI development, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Meta, they're all American, governed by American law, funded by American capital, and in several cases now are embedded inside American intelligence and defense infrastructure. The models that they build are then deployed globally. But the governance frameworks that they're meant to operate under are not. So Australia passed the AI in Government Policy Act in 2004, and the EU's AI Act came into force in the same year, but both are structurally downstream of decisions made in San Fran and Washington. When frontier labs embed engineers to build offensive cyber capabilities, no local legislation can reach that. The gap between where AI governance is written and where AI decisions are made is now becoming a jurisdictional problem. The climate action analogy is quite instructive here. For decades, the response for climate action was shaped by what researchers now call the individual responsibility deflection. So it was a strategy documented by researchers in which fossil fuel companies redirected public and policy attention toward household behaviour. Turn off your lights, make sure that you're recycling, reduce your carbon footprint. The actual carbon footprint concept was popularised by BP advertising in 2004. Meanwhile, the structural question, what do we do about super-polluters, remained outside the frame. AI governance is running the same pattern. The public conversation is dominated by questions about how individuals and organisations should use AI responsibly. Watermarks on AI images or disclosure requirements, acceptable use policies. These are the equivalent of turning off your lights. They're all important to do, don't get me wrong. The decisions that get made today will shape the reputations of leaders and the longevity of businesses and brands to come. But the structural question, what jurisdiction applies to companies building foundation models, who has the standing to regulate them, and what happens when their primary customers are intelligence agencies? That question is substantially unaddressed. And the countries with the most to gain from keeping it unaddressed are the ones with the most leverage over the answer. I'm not saying that this is a partisan argument. The problem is not Republicans or Democrats or any particular administration in Australia. It's not Labor or Liberal problem. It's not just Labor or Tories in the UK. The problem is that the architecture of AI governance requires international cooperation of a kind that is currently very difficult to achieve. And the actors with the most power to enable that cooperation have the least incentive to do so. Researchers across institutions globally broadly agree on the categories of concern. The challenge is the same one that stalled climate cooperation, nuclear non-proliferation, global tax reform, trust between leaders who are operating inside competing national interests, and what that looks like when it costs them domestically. We can all legislate. Australia can legislate, EU too. But if frontier models powering that change are built, deployed and governed exclusively under US law, then the rest of the world is not a participant inside its AI governance. We can have the most thoughtful AI policies in the world and still have no meaningful say over the systems shaping public services, the media and defence. That is not a reason to stop legislating. It is a reason to be honest about what legislation alone can achieve and to push hard for the international frameworks that would actually give us teeth.